I'm 70. I gave my life to my son, and in return, he simply abandoned me. Not all at once. The silence came in pieces, like snow beginning to fall, soft at first, then heavy enough to bury everything in sight. His name is Daniel. He was born on a warm August afternoon when the world smelled like sun-warmed grass and hospital linen. I remember the way he cried loud, furious, alive. I held him and promised to never let him feel alone. I kept that promise. He didn't. Now I live in a small house near the edge of town. The paint's peeling off the porch railings and the wind rattles the window frames in winter. Some mornings I wake to the sound of birds scratching at the gutters. The heater hums like an old dog, steady, loyal, tired. The air smells faintly of lavender oil and dust, and the kitchen always holds a trace of cinnamon from the oatmeal I still make, just for myself. My days are quiet. Too quiet. Time moves like molasses, slow, sticky, impossible to wash off. 12 years. That's how long it's been since I've been truly part of his life. 12 years since I've held my granddaughter. 12 years of unanswered messages, vague replies, and birthdays they couldn't attend. Every attempt I made to reach him crashed against a wall of soft indifference. It was never open cruelty. No, that would have been easier to fight. What I got was silence dressed in politeness. Distance wrapped in excuses. The first few years, I didn't believe it. I thought maybe they were just busy. New baby, new house, new life. I bought gifts. I offered help. I baked the muffins he used to love, banana walnut with brown sugar topping, and left them on their porch. The tray was never returned. Once, I called to ask how they were. His wife answered. I could hear my granddaughter laughing in the background, high-pitched, pure. But the laughter stopped when she saw me through the screen door. Her mother pulled the curtain shut. I remember the moment it really sank in. It was Christmas Eve, 5 years ago. I spent the morning preparing everything, just in case. Roast chicken, mashed sweet potatoes, pecan pie, all the old favorites. I even lit the pine-scented candles I'd been saving. The table was set for 3. The house was warm with golden lamplight and quiet hope. At 5:32 p.m., I received a message. A photo. My son, his wife, their daughter. Matching pajamas. Smiling in front of their tree. The caption said, "Merry Christmas from our family to yours. Not to you. To yours." As if I were just some name on a list. An address to be checked off. The plate I'd set for Daniel stayed untouched. The candles burned low. I sat by the window, listening to the wind push against the walls as the scent of roasted garlic slowly turned cold. That night, I didn't cry. Not out loud. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I had become a ghost inside my own life. There's a drawer in my kitchen, second from the top on the left. In it are birthday cards I never sent. For my granddaughter. Each year, I bought one. Bright colors, glitter, silly rhymes. I even wrote little notes inside. You're growing so fast. I love you more than all the cookies in the world. Nana's proud of you every single day. But I couldn't send them. I knew they'd never reach her. I knew they'd end up in the trash unopened. So I kept them. Because throwing them out felt like giving up. And I wasn't ready to do that. Not yet. People ask why I didn't fight harder. Why I didn't confront them, demand answers, create drama. But motherhood isn't a courtroom. It's not about proving who's right. It's about showing up, even when no one sees you. I tried. Over and over. Quietly. Lovingly. Desperately. But there's a kind of cold that creeps into your bones after enough winters. And after 12 of them, I began to realize that love unreturned becomes something heavy. Something that sags on your shoulders and makes even breathing feel like work. I remember one afternoon last spring. I was in the garden, pulling weeds near the tomatoes. The air smelled of damp earth and lemon balm. A robin landed on the fence. Bright chest, sharp eyes. It chirped once, twice, then flew away. I watched it go and felt something strange rise in my chest. Not sadness. Not quite. It was something like envy. The robin knew where it was going. It was wanted somewhere. I started asking myself a dangerous question. What if I stopped waiting? What if I stopped measuring my worth in someone else's acceptance? What if I chose myself not out of bitterness, but out of mercy? I didn't decide right away. It came in waves. Quiet thoughts that visited in the early hours, when the world was still and my heart was loud. I would look at my hands, the same hands that once tied my son's shoelaces, wiped away tears, packed lunches with love and wonder. Do these hands deserve more than silence? Then came my 70th birthday. I didn't plan a party. I didn't expect a gift. I just made myself a cup of apple cinnamon tea and sat in my armchair by the window, wrapped in a crocheted shawl I made last winter. The sun filtered through the blinds in long, golden stripes. Outside, the breeze made the trees whisper to each other. At 11:07 a.m., I got a text. "Happy birthday, Mom." That was it. No call, no heart, no warmth. Just a sentence. Cold, punctual, obligatory. I stared at the screen for a long time, and I felt nothing. Not pain, not anger, just a hollow sort of stillness. That night, I didn't cry. I boiled lentils. I watered the plants. I brushed my hair 100 strokes like I used to when Daniel was little, and I told him it made wishes come true. Then I lit a candle, and I sat by the window, watching the moon rise soft and full above the distant hills. The wind rustled the rosemary bush outside. A cat passed along the fence, tail high. In the distance, a train rumbled like a memory moving on. And in that moment, I whispered something into the silence that filled my home. I remember who I am. That was the night everything began to change. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I had finally run out of apologies. Because love isn't something you earn by shrinking. And dignity isn't something someone else can give you. It's something you reclaim. I didn't wake up one day filled with hope. It wasn't a sunrise epiphany or a sudden burst of clarity. It began with something quieter, something heavy and cold. A kind of bitterness that sat in the pit of my stomach like a stone. Not anger, not even heartbreak. Just that low, steady ache of being forgotten. It was late September. Morning light filtered through the lace curtains in my kitchen, casting soft shadows on the wooden table. The air held a chill, the kind that creeps in before the leaves have the courage to fall. My hands were wrapped around a ceramic mug, warm with apple cinnamon tea. I stared down at the rising steam, watching it twist like a silent question I didn't know how to answer. The table, worn smooth over decades, bore the weight of my silence. This was the same table where Daniel once did his schoolwork, tongue between his teeth in concentration, where we shared birthday cakes and Thanksgiving pies. Now it was just me and the faint ticking of the old clock on the wall. That morning, I scrolled through old messages. There weren't many. Most were short, distant. "Happy birthday, Mom. Hope you're doing okay." One read, "Can't talk now, we're busy with the kids. Maybe next week. Maybe next week." I read that line 4 times. There was something quietly cruel about it. Casual. Offhand. As if I had asked for something unreasonable. As if the sound of my voice was a chore he didn't have time for. I swallowed hard. My throat felt tight. My eyes burned, but no tears came. Just that same hollow feeling, the one that had grown familiar. My mind wandered back to the last time I saw them in person. It was a warm afternoon 11 years ago. They invited me for a quick lunch, Rachel had said on the phone. I remember bringing a homemade peach cobbler, Daniel's favorite as a boy. I had wrapped it carefully, still warm, in a dish towel. When I arrived, Rachel opened the door. She gave me a smile, the kind that flickers and vanishes before it reaches the eyes. "Oh, you made it." Not, "We're so glad to see you." Not, "It's been too long." Just, "Oh." The hallways smelled like lemon cleaner and new carpet. The walls were white bare, sharp in the light. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a hotel. When I offered to hold my granddaughter, Rachel glanced toward the nursery. She just went down for a nap. Maybe later. But later never came. The baby stayed behind a closed door. I sat on the couch, hands folded in my lap, listening to her muffled coos through the wall. Each sound made my heart tighten, like someone squeezing it slowly. I tried to compliment their home. I said the light was lovely, that the space was bright. Rachel nodded. "We like things modern. Clean." There was an edge in her tone, polite, but cool. As if the floral scarf I wore had already offended her minimalist taste. I handed her the baby blanket I had spent weeks crocheting. Pink and white, soft as a whisper. I had imagined her face lighting up, maybe even a hug. She took it by the corner. Thanks. We've already got plenty. No smile. No warmth. She folded it once and set it on the entryway table like it was a brochure. Daniel sat beside me at lunch, but he hardly spoke. I asked about his work. He gave short answers. Busy. Deadlines. New projects. Then he turned to Rachel and asked if they had confirmed the babysitter for Saturday. I felt myself disappear. When I offered to help clear the table, I dropped a fork. It clattered onto the tile. Rachel bent down, picked it up, and said, "Don't worry. Accidents happen." But her voice had changed quieter, sharper. Like she was saying, "You don't belong here." I drove home in silence that day, the cobbler dish still in the back seat untouched. After that, the invitations stopped. Birthdays came and went with a one-word text. Photos of their vacations, their celebrations, their lives, none included me. It was like watching someone tear pages from a book you once wrote together. But I kept trying. I mailed little gifts, a book I loved, hand-knitted socks, a music box that played a lullaby I used to hum to Daniel. They were never acknowledged. Once I texted a photo of my cat curled up in a laundry basket. Just something light, an excuse to connect. Daniel replied, hours later, "Cute." That single word felt like a slammed door. I noticed how Rachel's words always had a softness to them, but beneath that softness was a message. We try not to expose the kids to too many outside influences. We've created a rhythm that works for us. The kids are very sensitive, so we're careful who they spend time with. Each sentence was carefully crafted to keep me at a distance. And Daniel? He let it happen. He let me fade. 2 years ago, I slipped in the garden and sprained my ankle. The pain was sharp, immediate. I sat on the porch step, trying to catch my breath. My phone was in my pocket. I called their number. Rachel answered. I told her what had happened. "Oh no, that must be hard," she said. "Daniel's not home right now. Take care." That was it. No follow-up. No offer to come by. No call from Daniel. I slept in a recliner that week, leg propped up, heart hollow. One night, lying there, I stared at the ceiling fan and whispered to the empty room, "What did I do so wrong?" I never found an answer. But slowly, something began to change in me. Not all at once. Like fog lifting, inch by inch. I realized that if I didn't stop grieving the family I'd lost, I'd forget the woman I used to be. I began small. I pulled out the savings I had set aside, money I once thought I'd leave for Daniel. I used it to buy fabric, yarn, thread. I dusted off my old sewing machine. I started making table runners and scarves, just for myself at first. Then a friend suggested I sell them online. I hesitated, but I tried. And to my surprise, people bought them. They left kind comments. Sent messages like, "This reminded me of my grandma," or "You have a gift." One message read, "I opened your package and cried. Thank you for bringing warmth back into my life." That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket over my knees, holding that message in my hand. The wind rustled the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. And for the first time in years, I smiled. I expanded. I opened a small booth at the Saturday market. I met other women, older like me, who had their own silent griefs. We traded stories, shared laughter, became a community. I saved every dollar. Each sale felt like a quiet victory. Each kind word like a salve. Then, one afternoon, I saw it. A listing online, a house near the coast, white shutters, wraparound porch, wild roses growing along the fence. It needed work, but it had soul. I bought it. With my money, my work, my hands. I packed my things and left the house where I had waited so many years for a call that never came. I remember locking the door, placing my hand on the frame for a moment, and whispering goodbye to the woman I used to be. The new house welcomed me with open windows and light that danced on the floors in the morning. I filled it with quiet joy, books, flowers, fabrics, and time. Time that belonged to me. It wasn't just a home. It was proof. Proof that I hadn't vanished. Proof that I was more than a forgotten mother. The resentment still lives in me. Not loud, not burning, just present. A quiet reminder of what was taken and what I reclaimed. Because this time I chose myself. And for the first time in over a decade, I felt whole again. Not because someone gave me permission, but because I stopped waiting for it. The house was still new to me, but already it felt like mine. Real wood floors, pale walls that caught the afternoon sun, and windows that opened wide to the sound of gulls and distant waves. It smelled faintly of sawdust, lavender polish, and something more personal, like warmth from old books, tea leaves, and fresh linens. Peace had a scent, and I had finally found it. That afternoon, the sky was layered with soft clouds. A pale breeze passed through the open windows, lifting the edge of the white curtain beside the sunroom. I was sitting in my favorite chair with a crocheted throw across my knees, cradling a cup of mint tea. The clock on the wall ticked evenly, and the world around me, this world I built with my own hands, felt still. Then came the knock. 3 firm raps on the front door. Confident, not rushed. I hadn't heard that rhythm in years. A part of me, the mother part, recognized it immediately. My stomach tightened. I placed the cup down slowly and stood. My knees ached slightly, but I didn't hurry. The hallway leading to the door was filled with golden light from the setting sun. I walked quietly, my breath steady, but each step felt heavier. When I opened the door, they were already halfway up the porch steps. Daniel and Rachel. My son stood tall, dressed casually as if this were just another visit, another day. Rachel, neat as always, wore a crisp white blouse, beige slacks, her hair in a tight ponytail. Her smile was familiar, pleasant, controlled. Behind them, at the edge of the driveway, I spotted 2 large suitcases, a wheeled carry-on, and a box labeled Fragile in red marker. My pulse slowed. My eyes, however, didn't flinch. "Hi, Mom," Daniel said, stepping forward with a practiced ease. "We thought we'd surprise you," Rachel added, her voice light. She glanced over my shoulder, into the house. "It's even bigger than the photos. Beautiful." I said nothing. The wind picked up slightly, pushing her perfume floral, sharp toward me. My eyes shifted from their faces to the luggage. I didn't invite them in. Daniel continued, hands in his pockets, casual like it was all normal. "We're between houses right now, just for a little while. We thought, with all this space you have." That tone, that calm, entitled tone, as if my home was an extension of his convenience, as if years of silence had never existed. "The kids would love the backyard," Rachel chimed in, already halfway onto the porch. "And the porch swing, it's so charming. We've been so stressed lately. This will be good for everyone." I felt it then, a quiet heat rising from my chest into my throat. It wasn't just resentment. It was memory. I saw Rachel in her pristine kitchen a decade ago, turning down the blanket I made with a polite nod. I heard her voice dismissing my concern for their baby's feeding schedule. I remembered how Daniel had stood beside her, silent, unmoved, while I swallowed my pride just to be included. And now they stood on my doorstep like it all belonged to them. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door gently behind me. The breeze caught the hem of my cardigan. I looked at them. "No." Daniel's brow furrowed. "What?" "No," I repeated. Calm, unshaken. "You're not moving in." Rachel gave a small, nervous laugh. "Oh, we're not trying to impose. Just a few weeks. Until escrow closes. It's really just a formality." I tilted my head slightly. Not for me. Daniel's face changed, not anger, but disbelief. Like I had spoken in a language he didn't understand. "Mom, come on. Let's not make this more difficult than it needs to be." That word again, difficult. That was how I'd been labeled every time I asked to be included. Every time I voiced a feeling. Every time I existed outside of the quiet box they wanted me in. I looked straight at Rachel. "You once told me you were very particular about who your children spent time with. Remember that?" She blinked, caught off guard. "I didn't mean it like that." "But you did," I said. "You made it clear." Daniel sighed, frustrated now. "We're in a bind. You have the space. What's the big deal?" "You made your choices," I said, keeping my voice even. "When I was sick, you didn't call. When I reached out, you looked away. When I sent gifts, you never even said thank you. Now you need something, and I'm supposed to forget all that?" Rachel's smile had faded entirely. She stepped back slightly, her eyes starting to Daniel. He clenched his jaw. "You're being unreasonable." That stung. Not because it was true, but because I knew he believed it. "I paid for everything," I said. "I helped when you were starting out. I sent money when you asked, no questions. And you still pushed me out. I didn't say anything for you. For peace. But peace isn't silence anymore." There was a long, heavy pause. Rachel looked like she wanted to say something, but the words never came. I took a step closer. Not angry, just clear. "You will not come into this house. And you will not inherit it. I've changed my will. Everything I own will go to people who saw me when I was invisible to you." Daniel's mouth opened slightly. Shock, then confusion. He said quietly, "You're really doing this?" "Yes, I am." Rachel finally found her voice. "You're punishing us over the past. That's not fair." I felt something shift again. Not pain, not guilt, just release. "You erase me," I said. "I'm simply returning the favor." They didn't move. The breeze picked up, rustling the leaves of the lemon tree beside the porch. A bird landed on the railing, chirped twice, and flew off. Daniel turned to Rachel. "Let's go." But she hesitated. "You know," she said, looking at me, "you're cutting yourself off. The kids won't know you. They'll grow up without a grandmother. Is that what you want?" That almost worked. That almost made me step back. But then I thought of all the birthdays I spent alone. The photos I wasn't in. The baby blanket left in a drawer. "They already don't know me," I said. "Because you decided they wouldn't." I turned, opened the door, paused. "We'll talk about this again," Daniel said firmly. I looked over my shoulder, voice calm. "No, we won't." The door clicked shut behind me. Inside, the house was quiet again. Warm. Mine. I leaned against the wall for a moment, exhaling. My heart wasn't racing. My hands didn't tremble. I walked to the kitchen, poured the now-cooled tea back into my cup, reheated it in the microwave, and carried it to the sunroom. Outside, dusk was falling. The light had turned a soft gray-blue. I wrapped the throw tighter around me. The quiet wasn't heavy anymore. It was earned. And this time, I wasn't going to give it away. It didn't take long. Just 2 days after I told them no, the silence broke. And not gently. It was a warm Thursday morning, the kind where the air feels soft and lazy. The sun poured through my kitchen windows in long golden streaks, warming the tile floors and catching on the polished edges of my teacup. I had just returned from the market with a small bundle of rosemary, a bag of lemons, and a warm loaf of bread wrapped in brown paper. My arms were full, my heart light. For a brief moment, I felt settled. Not joyful, not ecstatic, but content in a quiet, ordinary way. The kind of contentment that doesn't shout, it hums. Then I saw it. A white envelope tucked into the edge of the door frame. Thick paper. My name written in Rachel's tight, slanted handwriting. Even the way she formed my name annoyed me, like it took effort to be precise, to be correct, to be exact. Never warm. Always meet. I carried it inside, placing the groceries carefully on the kitchen counter. The scent of lemon and bread followed me as I opened the letter. 3 printed pages. No greeting, just tone. "We were shocked and hurt by your behavior. Families should support each other during difficult times. Your refusal to open your home to your own son and grandchildren is deeply concerning." My stomach nodded. My fingers tightened around the page. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock, suddenly loud in the silence. Refusal. They made it sound like I had slammed a door on crying children, like I had turned my back on people who had always been there for me. "Your behavior was cold and unkind. The children were excited to see you. Now they're confused and upset." I sat down at the kitchen table, my back straight, the letter held in both hands. I read that sentence 3 times. My vision blurred slightly, not from tears, but from something sharper. A resentment so deep, it made my chest feel heavy. The children were confused? Confused by what? By the grandmother they hadn't spoken to in years finally standing up for herself? They didn't know me. Rachel had made sure of that. So had Daniel. And now they were using the kids, holding them up like a shield, a guilt-soaked banner. I saw through it, but it still hurt. Outside the window, the lemon tree swayed gently. A hummingbird zipped to the feeder and paused midair, wings a blur. I focused on it, let its presence anchor me. They were trying to turn me into the problem. Again. For years, I had let it slide. The absence, the coldness, the quiet rejection dressed up in politeness. But now, when I finally protected the only space I had left, my home, suddenly I was the villain. That night, my phone rang. Daniel. I let it buzz twice before answering. I wasn't ready, but I didn't want to hide. Mom, he said, not warmly, just controlled. Can we talk? I stayed silent for a moment. The only sound in the room was the soft creak of the ceiling fan. You hurt Rachel, he said. You embarrassed us. The kids asked why Nana didn't want to see them. What am I supposed to say to that? Embarrassed. That word struck me. Not sad. Not disappointed. Embarrassed. Like I was an inconvenience. A smudge on their otherwise perfect story. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, took a breath. Say whatever you like, I replied. You always have. He paused. I could almost hear his mind spinning. You're really cutting us off. Over what, a few years of distance? 12 years, I said. My voice didn't waver. 12 years of being treated like I didn't exist. We were busy. Life got complicated. I laughed. Quiet, bitter. So was I, busy hoping for a call. Busy wondering if I should send one more card, one more gift, just to be ignored again. His tone shifted, defensive now. This isn't how families work. Then maybe you should have treated me like family when it mattered. He hung up. The silence afterward felt like pressure in my ears. I stood there for a long moment, the phone still in my hand, before placing it face down on the counter. The next day, the storm arrived. Not rain family. Voicemails. Texts. Missed calls. Aunt Marlene. Cousin Angela. Even Irene, my late husband's sister, left a message. I don't know what's going on, but they're saying you slammed the door in their faces. That you refuse to see your own grandchildren. Is everything okay? Everything? Where were they when I was recovering from surgery with no visitors? Where were they when Daniel stopped inviting me to Thanksgiving, to birthdays, to life? Nowhere. But now I had done the unthinkable. I had said no. That night, I muted the phone, made a pot of lentil soup, lit a lavender candle, sat in the quiet of my own home and tried to breathe. But it lingered. The guilt, the second-guessing, that old, familiar voice that whispered, maybe you're the problem. Maybe you should have handled it differently. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Not out of strength, but because I had no tears left for this. I thought of all the ways I had made excuses for Daniel. He was tired. He was busy. He didn't know how to manage Rachel. I had spent years explaining away neglect as misunderstanding. But you can only explain away so much before the silence becomes a wall. Before the absence becomes a message. More messages arrived. A second letter. This one in Rachel's handwriting. No printed pages. Just neat, careful cursive. We're not perfect. No one is. But holding on to the past only hurts everyone. We all make mistakes. We can't change what's behind us, only what's ahead. Then, a note supposedly from the children. We love you, Nana. No crayon. No drawings. No fingerprints. Just two typed names. I folded the letter, placed it gently in a drawer, and shut it. That drawer already held years of unacknowledged cards and unopened thank yous I never received. It was full enough. I didn't respond. A few days later, I went to water the garden. The sun was low, golden. The breeze soft. My roses had started to bloom again, small, defiant bursts of pink. That's when I saw the bouquet. Peonies. Rachel's favorite. Pale blush, carefully arranged in a glass vase. No note, but I knew who had sent them. I stood there, garden hose in hand, as the breeze brushed past my arms. A mourning dove called from a nearby tree. For a brief second, I almost softened. But then I remembered, this wasn't for me. This wasn't an apology. It was another performance. A gesture with no meaning behind it. Something to ease their conscience. Not mine. So I turned off the hose, picked up the vase, walked to the edge of my yard, to the compost pile behind the fence, and laid the flowers down. Not out of rage, but with care. Like burying something that had once been beautiful, but no longer belonged. Then I turned back toward the house, my house, and walked inside. I didn't look back. This time, I didn't need to. The days that followed were quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask questions or wait for answers. My phone stopped buzzing. No new messages. No more notes in the door. No flowers on the porch. Just silence. And yet, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt free. I spent my mornings in the garden. The roses had bloomed fully, and bees hovered lazily in the sun. I started baking again, just for myself. Warm bread, cinnamon tea, soft music playing from the old radio by the window. But even in that peace, I still felt something inside. Resentment doesn't evaporate like morning mist. It lingers. It settles deep. And every time I thought of their words, their sudden concern, it flared again. One evening, I received an email. It wasn't from Daniel. It was from someone I didn't recognize, a woman named Teresa. Subject, your work meant something. I clicked it open. Dear Mrs. Reynolds, you probably don't remember me, but I bought one of your quilts at the Saturday market last winter. It was navy blue with little stitched stars. I gave it to my mother during her last weeks. She loved it. She said it felt like being held. I just wanted you to know that what you do, it matters. It meant something to her. And it means something to me. Thank you. I read it twice. 3 times. My eyes burned. Not from pain, from something warmer. Because while my own family had pushed me out, a stranger had seen me, had been comforted by my hands, my work, my time. I sat at the table, the email glowing on the screen, and cried quietly. And in those tears, something loosened. Not everything, but enough. The next morning, the doorbell rang. I opened it slowly. Daniel stood alone. No luggage. No Rachel. He looked tired. Not in a theatrical way. Just worn down, like someone who'd spent days arguing and getting nowhere. His shirt was wrinkled. His eyes looked older than I remembered. Hi, Mom. I didn't say anything. I stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind me. He hesitated. I'm not here to ask anything. Just to talk. If that's okay. I nodded once. We sat on the porch swing. The wood creaked beneath us. A bird chirped from somewhere in the lemon tree. He didn't look at me at first. Rachel doesn't understand why you're so upset, he said quietly. She thinks you've always held something against her. I looked straight ahead. I never held anything against her. Until she made me disappear. He flinched. She didn't mean to, Daniel. For 12 years, I was invisible to you. And when I finally stood up for myself, you treated me like the problem. He finally met my eyes. There was something behind his guilt, maybe. Or confusion. I didn't know how to balance everything, he admitted. The kids. Rachel. Work. You. You didn't try, I corrected. You let her decide who is family. And you went along with it. He was quiet for a long time. I'm sorry. 2 words. Quiet. Small. Real. I nodded. I believe you. But that doesn't erase everything. I know. He stood. Put his hands in his pockets. I'll go, he said. I just wanted to say it. As he turned to leave, I said, Daniel. He stopped. I'm not angry anymore, but I won't pretend it didn't happen. He nodded once, then walked down the steps into the soft gold of the evening. I didn't invite him back, but I didn't shut the door either. That night, I lit a candle and placed it in the kitchen window. A quiet symbol. Not forgiveness. Not surrender. Just space. Space to breathe. Space to heal. A few weeks later, I received a hand-drawn card in the mail. Crayons. A stick figure with gray hair and a cat. I love you, Nana, written in wobbly letters. No return address. Just a heart drawn in the corner. I pinned it to the fridge. Not because it fixed everything, but because it meant someone somewhere remembered me. And that was enough. I still spend my mornings in the garden. The world moves slowly here in the best way. I still bake and read and stitch. And sometimes, when I pass the mirror, I see a woman who is no longer waiting for anyone to make her feel worthy. I realize now that age is not about weakness. It's about dignity. And if you've ever felt like you don't belong, you're not alone. Some of us just have to build our own door and choose who's allowed to knock.